One of my favorite franchises, Resident Evil, got butchered in the atrocities that were the Paul S. Anderson films, and since then I'm very skeptical about video game adaptations to film format. I swear to God, if someday someone decides to turn Final Fantasy VII or any Final Fantasy into a movie, I'll pretty much sell my soul or something like that. You can tell that my mental state isn't functioning in a normal fashion. Well, that's because after watching Mortal Kombat 2021, I went through a full day just processing if I loved it or if I hated it, and in conclusion I don't even know anymore. This one got on my nerves because it was easily one of my most anticipated movies of the year, and it left me angry for more after plenty of teases throughout the runtime at something that perhaps could have been close to perfection. Mortal Kombat 2021 is directed by Simon McQuaid, and it's based on the popular fighting games that most gamers love, including me. And in this new view of the material, we see this kick-ass world through the perspective of Cole Young, an MMA fighter that finds himself being chased by the terrifying warrior Sub-Zero, leading him to seek help from other warriors to defend his family from the Outworld fighters, in a high-stakes battle for the universe. Starting off with a major positive, this movie begins with a majestic opening sequence with a great setup, splendid tone, and a sense of epicness. By the time it ended, I really got chills. I was on the edge thinking this was gonna be a masterpiece. It introduced Hiroyuki Sanada, a Scorpion that is a phenomenal pick for this role, and was by far the best character portrayed. And then Sub-Zero, the second best, that shows up and kills Scorpion's family. And by that time I thought this was gonna follow in some way Scorpion on a path of revenge. Where after those initial mesmerizing minutes, the movie cuts to Cole Young and it never goes back to Scorpion until the last moments of the film. Yeah, and to be honest, I truly didn't care about Cole as the protagonist. I just wanted to go back to the astounding movie that the opening sequence presented, and that's a point that pissed me off. The entire thing feels like 2 or 3 completely different and distant movies in one. The opening sequence looked so promising and it seemed to commit to its essence, but the entire first and second act is filled with cheesy and goofy dialogue that instead of embracing it, it still tries its best to sound serious and comes out as flat and forced. What kept me entertained was Kano and his cursing. This guy was the third best character in this movie, that served as the comedy relief in this world of robot characters that spit exposition from their mouth and act really weird for what they are in the games. There's a lot of shift in tone and it's insane. One moment you feel you're watching a great fighting piece, and then it feels like a fan-made video on YouTube. I like to watch these movies with some friends, and this time I watched with a friend of mine that pretty much said the exact same thing I was thinking of. We both agreed that this movie doesn't flow naturally, and it's all about the editing, setting up a scene, combat choreography and the dialogue itself in the story. Even outside of fight scenes, while characters are talking, it cuts to random scenes where we're supposed to feel a threat, but instead it feels like the film has a hard time understanding when to introduce certain characters and elements. And then it cuts back to our protagonist and it just feels weird. Again, the tone shifts in ways that I can't even comprehend. Cole's decisions and motivations are driven by the bad writing that has to put this character on certain locations at any cost, without caring for a good setup and development. And it only gets worse on the fight scenes. Now, when you have the name Mortal Kombat involved, and with this budget, I don't believe they didn't have the resources to perform good continuous fights and have a good choreography. This film is full of quick cut editing that really made me close my eyes sometimes. I just hate it. It was done in worse ways on the last Resident Evil movie, for example, and when it comes to fight scenes, I can't digest it. I hate this approach to editing and I can't even understand why they would choose something like this. The thing is, the weirdest part is that the first fight with Scorpion at the beginning wasn't like that, and it sure had great moments with wide shots of the action where you could appreciate the choreography. It also is present in the epic showdown at the end where Scorpion fights Sub-Zero and eventually Cole teams up with him. That whole battle was pure joy to me. It's like a sick punishment that ends up with a reward. And even if I loved the beautiful heartfelt fight, everything behind was bad, and I wish I cared more about the final moments. So taking those battles aside, every other involving iconic characters was a pure, substandard, poorly executed piece. That again, felt like fan-made. And it's really a shame because they clearly had great potential when it comes to production design and cinematography. There are beautiful shots that are huge in scope, followed by a great score. There's actually decent CGI for the most, taking aside weird green screens. And even in the art style, there's a lot of references to the lore and little elements of the games. Every scenery looks fantastic, and at the end of the day, the R rating pays off. I just wish that in the fight scenes I felt more impact and actual damage, because you almost only see blood in finishers and in some little moments. Again, in the first fight it's nothing like that. You see a lot of blood flying around. On top of everything, I'm a sucker for a good story, but I wasn't expecting this movie to deliver it perfectly. But I had hope because the cast seemed truly decent. And it is, but the script is very convoluted and it's evident this movie doesn't know what to focus on. I hope they do differently with the sequels and actually show the tournament. The name of the movie is Mortal Kombat, for God's sake. And I'm not implying that you need to bring it to the film, but if you keep mentioning it and teasing that it's gonna happen, I expect you to live up to that. Furthermore, at this point I'm waiting for a vicious and destructive Scorpion movie, because Yurioki Sanada in his shoes felt amazing. His rage, his voice, I loved everything when it comes to that part, and it had me in actual tears by the time the movie ended. Ah man, I'm gonna give Mortal Kombat a 6 out of 10. Have you seen this one? Let me know your thoughts on it. Also, what's your favorite Mortal Kombat character? Leave a comment down below, and if you found my channel and you like what I do here, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya.